All right, this is about the power of Mother Nature. We are we have a full moon energies going right now, and the spring is finally here. We had the Arctic amplification from the jet stream slowing down, and I've been enjoying YouTube as usual. But I'm also working outdoors a lot more now, covered in poison ivy and ticks. And um, the there's been a there's been mention of environmental so-called fanatics on YouTube, and I was actually investigated by a Siberian Intelligence was the name of the company. I was included in a report on eco-terrorists, and I was one of 12 people in this report. I discovered it when I Googled my name about, I don't know, maybe like 20 years ago or something, maybe 15 years ago. And the report's no longer online. It was part of some pet fur farm agribusiness association because they're, the animal rights people. The charges against me was that I was a multi-sector and habitual activist. And so, since I practiced my Bill of Rights, then that made me a one of 12 suspected eco-terrorists. But I've always held the position, the view that Mother Nature will take care of the job much better than humans could ever do. I do admit that my research and writing has most likely inspired people to take action, that people that I don't directly know or possibly have known directly, but they've never shared with me the details. At any rate, for example, one young fellow was arrested for burning down the Cargill construction site. I don't know how he did this, or there must have been some wood framing. I don't know. I have no idea, but he went to jail for that. But it was at the university, and I had a prominent article in the 1999 pointing out, Cargill had donated $10 million for genetic engineering, and they were building a new genetic engineering building, Cargill research building. And so, of course, David F. Nobel's book, The Religion of Technology, includes genetic engineering as part of this. One example of these apocalyptic attempts at creating what he calls the new atom, as like the new Garden of Eden for the promised land. And it turns out, of course, Monsanto's patent was expiring in 2000. And so the genetic engineering was a way to create new patents that also tied the use of the glyphosate to their specific genetically engineered crops that are resistant to the herbicide glyphosate. So the glyphosate use, I just looked this up, and the use, like, it just exploded from the mid '90s to the early 2000s, um, and it's continued to increase. And of course, now we have the like the monarch butterflies. The monarch butterflies are officially endangered now, um, and that's largely due to the glyphosate herbicide killing off the main plant that they rely on. Um, what is it? What is that plant again? We have it. We have it here. Milkweed. And at any rate, we had. I actually, I just brought some glyphosate down to our environmental center where they have to treat it as hazardous waste. Ideally, I hope they're not just gonna donate it, put it on their free shelf, to reuse it or something. Who knows? Because they don't know, what's going on. But I just looked it up, and there's all this new research on glyphosate resistant weeds. So the Mother Nature rapidly evolved in a matter of 20 years, this resistance to glyphosate. And of course, it's now documented, glyphosate's now documented to be carcinogenic. And so there's an increased number of governments that are banning the use of glyphosate on their lands, for ground maintenance and all that. But it's just a great example of the power of Mother Nature. And I mean, we as humans, we developed farming like 10,000 years ago, and the argument is that it's actually like another level of evolution for humans, because we're basically like a super organism when we farm. So there's a group selection operating where the level of cooperation as a group is more important than the individual. And this, I mean, intrinsically, this seems like a good thing. I mean, because we want to help each other out, we want to cooperate, and I've been involved in the cooperative movement. I'm proud to say that I've been fortunate to help, be part of cooperatives and community organizing, but working together, living together in communes. I currently live in a cooperative situation, and so I do the grounds work here. I do all organic, regenerative lawn work and mushroom farming, and so it's a lot of manual labor, but we don't, and it's a lot easier than dealing with we were paying a lot of money before to have toxic synthetic herbicides sprayed on the grass. But now I'm going to go harvest dandelions. I'll harvest the fresh dandelion greens that are medicinal, and it's a good, spring is the perfect time of the year to have more greens, and because it's warmer, so you can eat, you can eat like less dense calories and just start living off the sunlight. And so what we don't realize is that farming, like humans, we were hunter gatherers for 90% of our biology in the past, and now, I mean, we're using science to reverse engineer what it means to be human. But who was it? Jim Massa, the oceanographer, his YouTube channel Science Talks with Jim Massa. He, he just uh, discussed a science study on the just the ecological damage from global warming. And the problem is that you can't the animals can't adapt to the rapid increase in the heat. And and so he pointed out this common, it's a well known fact now that the farm animals, the domesticated animals now have out have taken over from the wildlife mammals, displaced the wildlife mammals. So we've reduced the number of wildlife mammals by 40 percent in the past 40 years, something like that. And there's a conservation biologist who said, Michael Soule, he pointed out in the 1970s that evolution has literally ended for large mammals. And so there's this fixation on evolution from technology, this claim that humans are still evolving through our development of technology. Like a 60 Minutes recently had this big interview about the Google AI efforts, and the guy who he makes, like, I don't know, like $25,000 an hour, something like that, like some huge amount of money. And he kept fixating on the technology as evolution. He kept using that word evolution, but that, even like Cambridge University Press even has a book titled the evolution of technology. But I mean, even the science of evolution developed at the same time that the Industrial Revolution was destroying ecology as nature. And the thing is that if you, like, when we talk about global warming, most people immediately think of it as a policy issue. We need to fix the problem, so we need policy changes, we need, whatever those policies are, but they don't actually focus on the actual natural science of ecology and geophysics, on what actually causes global warming, what are the various factors involved. So I recently posted a video on the CO2 emissions rate. Like, I was talking with a neighbor, and whenever I mention global warming, he says, well, that's because people don't understand the Milankovitch cycle. And it's like, you're supposed to be impressed by this, Milankovitch cycle. Actually, Paul Beckwith, he did a really good presentation recently on the Milankovitch cycle. Basically, that, I mean, our CO2 emissions right now are way beyond what the Milankovitch cycle is. But the Milankovitch cycle was based on the ice ages, that changed due to the eccentricity of the Earth's orbit and the tilt of the planet changing slightly, and also the backwards precession of the wobble. So those three factors create are averaged together as the Milankovitch cycle that then caused the ice ages with a change in the CO2 levels. The CO2 levels then increase the temperature. But the CO2 only went up to 300 parts per million as the highest due to the Milankovitch cycle. And now the CO2 is beyond, I think it's 420. But then there's also CO2 equivalent, which includes methane and nitrous oxide. So, and then there's the aerosol masking effect, and this never gets discussed. It's also called global dimming, but the sulfur pollution reflects the solar radiation, and that was determined by Daniel Rosenberg's research group to be twice as bad as previously thought. So that means that a 40% decrease in coal burning will heat up Earth another 1 degree Celsius global average. And it's a highly localized phenomenon. So the countries that burn a lot of coal actually have a decreased heat in their area because they're like protecting themselves from the solar radiation. But so the problem is that the coal burning is also emitting CO2. So the overall effect will be global warming overall. And then there's the Arctic ice that is thinning. The volume is over 70% decreased since 1980, and the multi-year ice is over 90% gone. So you have a lot of ice that's only like 6 feet deep, 6 feet thick at most. A lot of ice is like 3 feet thick. And so it's once that ice goes, that's the air conditioner for the planet. And it's melting from below because there's over 250 zettajoules of heat that's extra stored in the oceans since 1995. It's been accumulating, and so over 90% of the heat from global warming has been stored in the oceans, and so that has caused the oceans to be stratified, and it's shutting down the ocean circulation. So the oceans are getting saturated with the heat, and then it's causing the heat to be released and melt the ice from below. And then so like the really hot ocean temperature water from the Mediterranean then goes up to the Arctic. And this is called alanification. And then the same thing happens in the Pacific, where you have these heat blobs that have been documented to go in through Alaska and into the Arctic as pacification of heat blobs. And now we're heading into El Nino after several years of La Nina. And so the scientists are predicting another 0.5 degree Celsius increase in global temperature from El Nino. So this could very easily cause the Arctic ice to then largely disappear in the summertime, and that will then rapidly heat up the water even more, and that will cause the methane to release even more from the East Siberian Arctic shelf. It's the largest ocean shelf in the world, and there's 1,200 gigatons of pressurized methane. and just a 5 gigaton uh, eruption will double the global warming temperature on Earth, and that's considered to be highly likely to have an abrupt eruption, what's also called the methane bomb. And this was first documented by Natalia Shakova, her research group, and it was corroborated by an international expedition. And the Proceedings of the National Academy of Science had an article on it in 2021. Julia I can't remember her last name, Scharberg or something like that. It was not even discussed in the IPCC AR6 report of over 6,000 pages. They just totally ignored the East Siberian Arctic Shelf methane bomb. And instead they claim that the methane emissions can be reduced and therefore offset the temperature increase by reducing coal burning, causing that would decrease the aerosol masking effect. So, in other words, the power of Mother Nature is much greater than people attribute it to be, whether it's evolving the glyphosate resistance or releasing the methane or heating up from the oceans or the aerosol masking effect. And this is all natural science. It's not policy at all. There's no policy. There's no political agenda here. It's just basic natural science. So once you study the science, the natural science, then you realize things are way worse based on the rate of CO2 emissions and the ecological crisis. And started with farming, started with the invention of farming. And okay, thank you.